Sourabh Gupta joins us now to discuss these diplomatic visits. He is a senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies. Sourabh, let's start with this decades-long tradition, spending New Year on the road. What message is China sending this year in these regions of the world?
At this point of time, the world is not in a very good place, obviously, with COVID-19 and with the Omicron variant. China is showing that it is there for these countries and that it is a good friend. It has been a good friend, and it has always been a priority for Chinese foreign policy to reach out to these countries and deepen relationships. And therefore, through times thick and thin, China is going to be there, and that China and African countries and developing countries per se, more largely, are always going to be China's friends, and China will look out for their interests.
Let's turn now to Sri Lanka. This latest visit, it all started 70 years ago with the Lanka-China Rubber Rice Pact. It all started with rubber and rice, and then 5 years later, official diplomatic ties were established. So describe relations today between these two nations.
Oh, relations are very good. Sri Lanka obviously is in a very critical and important strategic location in the Indo-Pacific region. It's along the sea lines of communication. It has been a good friend of China for a very long time, and has also pluralized its friendships with other important countries. Of course, India, its giant and great neighbor next door, but also the Japanese and the United States. So Sri Lanka has reached out to many countries and has been a good friend, but China has been one of its special friends, and particularly over the last 10-15 years, the relationship has tightened significantly, and it has been broadened and deepened, and we saw part of it in terms of Mr. Wang Yi's itinerary in Sri Lanka, particularly with Colombo Port City, which has tremendous potential and which is pretty close to Colombo Port, where China also is doing fairly important development work. And so China and Sri Lanka are tied through the Belt and Road Initiative today in very significant ways, which also brings certain challenges, and I think they're dealing with those issues too.
Right, Sri Lanka wanting more help from China with its debt, its economy, and of course COVID-19. What are neighbors to these nations? As we heard one of our reporters mentioned, India is watching what happens very closely here, and other China watchers, what are they hoping to learn from these visits that Wang Yi has made over the last several days?
It's something to be watched over a long period of time as to where these relationships go. Obviously, relationships are being deepened, and it is in everybody's interest that relationships are tight and good with neighbors and with countries, and that these relationships are not conducted on a zero-sum basis. India has a special interest, one can say, simply because Sri Lanka is next door, and there are tremendous strategic implications. And so for India's perspective in particular, it's looking in terms of the security dimension. And so long as Sri Lanka satisfies the security anxieties of India with regard to China's presence out there, I don't think Sri Lanka has much or anything else to worry about and can deepen its relationships with China. This is one of the reasons the other countries, extra-regional countries like the United States, also have become anxious, because they're trying to understand where is China going from here, and considering that India is now the United States' friend, the United States takes India's interests at heart in Sri Lanka. So there's a wait and watch mode, as well as to see what's happening on Belt and Road and on these debt issues. But I would say, frankly, these are not zero-sum relationships. Maybe perhaps to a certain element of the security in terms of the security dynamics, but otherwise prosperity and wealth in developing countries just engenders greater prosperity and wealth around. And it is good to see Sri Lanka succeed, and good to see Maldives succeed, and good to see India and Bangladesh and other countries succeed. And to this extent that China can be a catalyst for that success, I think it's a good thing for all countries.